Okay, let's unpack this. We're talking Fort Lauderdale, Florida, the Sunshine State, right?
Mhm.
But here's the interesting paradox. What happens to solar panels when those famous clouds roll in? You know, the daily afternoon thunderstorms.
Yeah, exactly. Today, we're going to dive deep into a fascinating report. It's all about residential solar performance right there in Fort Lauderdale. We've got some real-world data, user experiences too. Helps us understand how solar really performs in that, well, unique tropical climate. You get tons of sunshine, but it's constantly interrupted by these intense short rain showers.
Right. So our mission here is to explore how those daily storms and the high humidity too, how they truly impact solar energy production. And importantly, what those real world impacts mean for you, the listener, if you're maybe considering solar in a similar kind of climate. Okay, so the report, it shows some pretty impressive annual production figures for solar down there. Typical systems, they can generate enough energy over the year to pretty much offset a home's usage. But here's the kicker, right? The daily output is incredibly unpredictable. It swings from these really high peaks down to almost nothing during a storm. What's causing such dramatic changes?
Well, it's largely down to the shift in solar irradiance. That's basically the amount of sunlight actually hitting the panels. On a clear day, your panels are getting full power. But even just moderate cloud cover, that can cut output by half. And during those really intense thunderstorms, production can effectively flatline. Just boom, gone.
Flatline, wow.
Yeah. And this directly impacts your energy yield. It really challenges that idea of consistent, uninterrupted solar power throughout the day.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, you'd naturally expect summer, right? Longer daylight hours. That should be the absolute peak season for solar production. But the data, it tells a different story. Systems in Florida are actually reporting higher production in spring than in summer. That feels really counterintuitive, doesn't it? What's going on there?
It absolutely does feel counterintuitive. We saw a report from a Central Florida user, south-facing panels, and they got 20–30% more output in April compared to June.
30%. Wow.
Yeah, there are two main reasons, really. First, summer is the wet season. You get those daily thunderstorms, sometimes tropical systems like Hurricane Beryl back in 2024.
Mhm.
That means persistent cloud cover. And second, spring's just cooler. The average temperatures are around, say, 24 Celsius versus summer's 29, and that heat matters.
Ah, the heat affecting the panels themselves.
Exactly. Think of it like this. Solar panels lose efficiency as they get hotter. It's about a 4% efficiency drop for every 10 degrees Celsius increase above 25 degrees. So cooler panels in spring are simply more efficient panels.
Right, right. Cooler panels work better. Okay, so the technical performance, it has its definite ups and downs with the weather. But what about the money side? The economics, we hear about attractive federal incentives like the 30% investment tax credit, but the average payback period in Florida is still kind of long, like 7 to 12 years. Are there hidden costs? What's stretching out that timeline?
That's a really critical point for any homeowner thinking about this. One significant factor is net metering programs, where you get credit for excess power sent back to the grid. These programs are often capacity capped, so only a limited percentage of customers might get the big deal, the one-to-one credit ratios where you get full retail value back.
Ah, so not everyone gets that top rate.
Precisely. And if you're not in that group, you might not get full retail credit for your excess power. That significantly impacts your financial returns, the whole payback calculation. For instance, we saw one Fort Lauderdale homeowner, 9.1 kilowatt system. Their $200 a month financing only really lined up with their old electricity bills because they managed to secure that crucial one-to-one net metering.
Okay, so that's a big variable. Anything else?
Yeah, insurance. Premiums can sometimes jump maybe 15–20%. Some insurers, because of hurricane risks, might classify homes with solar as more like commercial properties, believe it or not.
Even though the panels are built to withstand high winds.
Even though panels are typically installed to withstand winds up to like 160 mile per hour, it's something you definitely need to check with your insurer.
Okay. Good to know. Now, we've talked a lot about how rain reduces solar output, but is there any possibility, maybe down the line, that raindrops themselves could actually be a source of energy? Is that science fiction or?
Well, right now, your standard silicon photovoltaic panels, no. They can't generate power from rainfall. They work purely by absorbing photons from sunlight. However, it's interesting. There are experimental hybrid systems being researched. They're exploring something called Triboelectric nanogenerators, TNs for short.
Tangs?
Yeah, TNs. The idea is to harness the kinetic energy, the impact, from raindrops hitting a surface. It's a promising concept, harnessing that mechanical energy. But, and this is a big but, these are very much still in the lab scale development phase. They face pretty significant hurdles before they could ever be commercially viable, ready to put on your roof.
Okay, so maybe someday, but not anytime soon.
Not anytime soon, no.
So after this deep dive, it seems pretty clear solar energy is still a viable investment in places like Fort Lauderdale. A typical 911 kilowatt system, it can potentially offset maybe 80 to 100% of annual use for an energy efficient home. But it's absolutely weather dependent, and it requires some really careful planning.
Definitely. For you, the listener, this means really accounting for those seasonal output swings. Maybe think about prioritizing battery storage to handle that summer cloud cover impact. Also, keep a close eye on regulatory risks, like potential changes to net metering policies, and make sure you get a high-quality hurricane-rated installation. Proper roof reinforcements, that's key too.
Right, solid advice. And as you think about all this, here's something to chew on, a final provocative thought. If future tech advancements, things like bifacial panels, the ones that capture light from both sides, or maybe even those hybrid rain energy systems we just mentioned, if they do become commercially viable, how might that fundamentally change things? Could it shift our reliance on grid-tied solar? Could it truly make solar weatherproof for homes in climates defined as much by rain as they are by sun? Something to think about.